Welcome back to Switched On. I'm Julien Verzier and I'll be your host today. I'm delighted to receive Prisha Bhoola, Managing Directors of Firedart Engineering Underwriting Managers, one of the leaders in the engineering space in South Africa. And we're going to be continuing our tour of the solar PV space and understanding what are the challenges that we're facing on the market and who best to talk about challenges than the insurers that look after us on a daily basis. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have a discussion with Prisha today is because I think that insurers are essentially the pulse of our industry. You scoop behind us everywhere we mess up. So thank you so much for your time today. And we're going to be diving into the specificities of our industry and what works and what doesn't, according to what standards. So thanks again for having us. Before we jump right into the specifics of what you do, please give us an introduction to what Firedart does and how you position yourself on the market.
Thanks, Julian. It's such a pleasure to be here. So Firedart Engineering Underwriting Managers, I know it's long, Firedart, we're a traditional engineering insurer. So we were founded in 2001 by a group of engineers. To my knowledge, I think we are the second oldest engineering underwriter in South Africa. So we celebrate our 23rd birthday in 2 weeks' time.
Congratulations.
So, we provide the traditional engineering suite of products, your contractors all risk, plant all risk, machinery breakdown, etc. And solar insurance really wasn't on our radar until 2016. I think our group of engineering underwriters, they are engineers, they recognize that, they could use their competencies in assessing and mitigating complex projects. And they could understand those risks. So really, solar PV became a natural fit and kind of evolved into the next suite, the next step in the suite of our products. So we started in 2016, formulated the product and really rolled it out. And we didn't look back ever since.
Okay, well, that's quite an achievement because solar is such a niche and it's extremely specific.
Yeah.
And it takes into account mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, civils engineering, and you managed to package your product around all of those risks. Please tell us more about where you position yourself in the supply chain of solar. Who are your clients?
Okay. So essentially, we have two types of products that we tailor to suit the needs of our clients. And this is what we call cradle to grave cover. We have an erection all risk cover that covers the installation of a solar plant.
So that's for the EPC?
Yes.
Right.
But it could be for the owner as well.
For the IPP as well? Okay,
yes.
right.
And that will cover material damage, and then there's a liability section.
Okay.
Then once the solar installation is up and running and operational, we have an operational all risk cover. And that essentially covers you for material damage. We have a machinery breakdown section, liability, and then business interruption cover. So our cover is tailored to suit many stakeholders in the value chain, whether it is the developers, the EPCs, even the owners. So really it's tailored to cater for the needs of many.
So there's one product specifically that I think is particularly tailored to the solar industry and particularly challenging, and that's the BI, the business interruption.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more if I am an IPP, a plant owner, I've got an asset and then suddenly there's either a meteorological event that makes my plant non-functioning or a breakdown or a fire or any disruption to the production of the plant. How does Firedart assist me in that regard?
Essentially, we'll take out business interruption cover on the operational all risks side. So what happens is there's an indemnifiable event, for whatever reason. Say there's a fire, there's hail, there's a mechanical breakdown, and your solar installation is not operational.
Yes.
You cannot produce that electricity and you cannot on-sell it. What our BI cover does is it will compensate you for the lack of electricity. So it's a simple calculation. It is the yield, the kilowatt per hour, multiplied by the feed-in tariff that you contractually agreed upon.
By the PPA tariff.
Yes. And we do that, and we have an indemnity period. Usually it's 3 months.
Okay.
But we agree that upfront. So say, for example, it's 3 months, but your installation takes 6 months to be rebuilt and operational again. We limit that to the 3 months that we agreed upfront.
Understood.
And that's how the BI cover works.
Okay.
So it's purely feed-in tariff times the yield.
Which is quite, I mean, we've seen a lot of IPPs in our space bite the dust because they did not plan an interruption.
Yeah.
Whether it was I suppose you don't cover for load shedding, right?
No.
That's not part of the BI.
No.
Yeah, I also wouldn't.
Yes.
But we've seen quite a few of them underestimating what we call the unavailability of power. So the inability for the IPP to charge the off-taker. And we're seeing a few IPPs having to redesign their model, the financial model, to be able to cater for more unavailability. So I think that's quite valuable to them. Because there's always a safety net, which is the BI that you provide.
And this is why it's very important when you procuring insurance to really gain an understanding of what you're being covered for. I mean, let's face it, insurance is a grudge purchase. And many people just look at the quote and say, okay, what's the premium? It's really important to talk to your broker to look at what you're covered for and what you're not covered for. And that's where, we can provide a service to brokers who ultimately sell the product.
Prisha, I'd like to, so as you said, Firedart is well established in the market. What in your opinion made Firedart what it is today, a leader in the solar PV market in South Africa? Okay,
so what makes us different, I guess? Without blowing our own trumpet, though, I think we really pride ourselves in service. We understand that our brokers have certain needs and have to fulfill certain needs in a short amount of time. We understand also that this market is ever changing. It's evolving. The product that we rolled out in 2016 is very different to the product we sell today.
Of course.
Simply because we get that feedback from our clients. We get the feedback from our brokers. When claims happens, our claims team feeds back to our underwriters to say, you should be watching X, Y, and Z in the market. And so then we kind of tailor our products. So it's the ability to be agile. It's the ability to respond to our clients when needed. And then also it's a collaborative effort. We like to think that we work in partnership with our brokers to provide exceptional service. I think that's what makes us stand out.
Thanks for that. I understand that there's a very important word that is the ecosystem.
Yeah.
You form partnerships with different entities at different levels across the supply chain, and that makes you agile. I'd like to talk about the innovations in the insurance world. It's not often something that is under the spotlight, and I would like to take the opportunity for today to talk more about how do you innovate. Tell us more about what discussions you're having with your partners and how you're able to develop innovative products as a result of that.
Okay, our discussions vary between anyone who's willing to add value to this chain. It's similarly with you, Julian. We talk about the ecosystem, as you mentioned. And I remember saying, in the early days of the motor industry, there were no mechanics, there were no panel beaters, even insurance was in its infancy for motor vehicles. What we're trying to do with this in the solar space in South Africa is create that ecosystem. So we recognize we're just a cog, a small part in this entire ecosystem. We are trying to really upskill installers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. We're trying to talk to EPCs like yourselves to look at where does regulation fit in. We talk to regulators themselves as well to try to understand that. And all that feeds back to us really understanding and mitigating risk in this market. I can also tell you, we geotag all our solar installations so that we can see it on one map of South Africa.
Okay.
We assess where our hail perils are, where storm events are likely to happen. That feeds back into our underwriting. All of that also adds to the innovation. But in terms of creating this ecosystem, it's really my wish that we are upskilling people in our society. I mean, think of how much job creation we can contribute to the South African economy if we get this right.
Absolutely.
I would really like to partner with yourselves in your academy, to understand exactly what is needed to keep everyone safe, but then also enjoy what we have. We have more than we need of sunshine in this country.
Absolutely.
And, why not exploit that to our benefit in a very safe and manageable way?
No, I think you touch on very important things. You're right. That's what we try to do at the academy, not without any challenges. I will emphasize that. Setting up a standard is difficult.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're lacking in South Africa at the moment. You either have a very low standard or a very high standard that nobody can achieve.
Yes.
And I think our job as private companies is not necessarily to wait for the government to dictate to us what is the standard, but also for us to help the government to develop those standards, because we are on the ground every day. And we don't necessarily need to wait 5 years for a research paper for the government to start understanding what are the best practices happening and how do we standardize that and enforce it into the industry. And that's where your role is crucial as a standard setter, essentially, because the buck stops with you, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, if you don't recognize a specific standard according to which the solar PV system was installed, you're simply not going to be able to ensure that
we will
product.
decline to quote or decline to participate in that risk.
Yes.
But it also not, it doesn't only boil down to the competency of the installer. When you talk about the ecosystem, it's also about dealing with e-waste. It's about how we're going to recycle solar panels. What are we going to do with the entire equipment, the suite of equipment once its life is over?
Okay.
And that's something we must address also. And I'm hoping that we can actively participate in those discussions. Although we haven't had them yet, but we want to.
I think it's difficult, but I'm glad that you mentioned this, because I would not have guessed that the whole supply chain of a solar system, including the dismantling and making good again the space where the solar system was installed. I didn't even know that it was on your radar, that it was something that you would consider.
Yes.
And I guess it's always difficult you need to have a carrot and a stick at the same time, right? You can't.
But it's also not about having this traditional insurance mindset.
Yes.
If we are innovative, and everyone at Firedart has this growth mindset, we always look at opportunities, but where can we add value? And I think when you can answer that, the boundaries don't really apply anymore. Because yes, it's a very regulated industry, but we can assist with our knowledge and expertise in any aspect of the chain.
So in that regard, because you talk about borders, I'd like to. I think you've got an exciting news to share.
Yes. So you would know this, but I don't know if your viewers or listeners would. But Firedart underwrites for Compass Insure. And we recently obtained our license to expand north of our borders. So we're looking forward to that. And it's not about South Africa anymore, but it's about the African continent. And we're really looking forward to growing our market.
I can imagine it's a mixed feeling between extremely excited and at the same a little bit scary.
Yes, exactly. It's a bit of trepidation, but we're quietly optimistic.
I'm sure. I mean, often as ACES, we asked to go and develop and build solar jobs in other countries, and we look at local labor and local standards, and it's not always easy for us to know who we can trust and following what standards they're going to be installing our plant. And it's not as easy as saying, here's the manual, here's the standard that you must follow. It takes a tremendous amount of work, and which is why we like to work with you and Firedart to be able to establish those standards. And it takes a long time to develop an industry. But I do believe that it's our job. And certainly yours, but it's not an easy task.
No, I mean, but we are ready to contribute wherever we can.
And we love to hear that. Thank you. While we're on the topic of regulations, something that keeps on popping up, and we had Sungro sitting on this couch a couple of weeks ago about batteries and regulations. I think there's not many people in South Africa, and even potentially less in Africa, that are aware of standards when it comes to installation of batteries. Not all batteries are born equal. Some have cell monitoring control. Some have an airflow within the battery. Some are containerized without airflow. Some have a cooling system within the container, but without facilitating the airflow between the cells. But I would most likely, most of what I would like to talk about the fire suppression and fire prevention. We know that lithium-ion batteries are safe products, provided they're not abused, and we're seeing a couple abuse on the market. What would you like, or what can you share with either EPCs, but mostly IPPs or owners of batteries that are considering installing batteries, but they don't know exactly what the regulation is in terms of fire safety, fire prevention? What kind of materials can we use? Does it have to be built in into the battery container? Is it an add-on? Do I need to have a fire engineer that comes to sign it off? I'm not going to ask you to tell us all about the SANS codes and how to match the requirements thereof, but are you able to share with us a couple of experiences that you've got, or what your view is on the usage of battery, and to what extent you're able to, as Firedart, ensure a specific installation, and what will, and the impact that it has on the premium? Are you also in a position to say, no, I can't insure this battery because it is missing those elements, which are crucial for you?
Yeah, so all of these are really underwriting considerations.
Yes.
While we cannot get involved in the actual design, because you have experts to do that. Let me be clear, we will only insure installations that comply with SABS regulations, with the OEM specifications, and obviously with the regulations that's set out by municipalities.
Yes.
In many instances, we've seen installations where our underwriters have walked away because they're not comfortable with the risk that the actual installation presents, and we are not comfortable to take that on. So,
sorry to interrupt you on this. So does that mean that whoever designed and purchased and installed the installation or the battery did not consult you in the first place. So they came to you right at the end of the project and said, can you please insure that? And you said no.
Yeah, well, that's it, because, the arrangements were such that, I suppose insurance is the last consideration.
Well, it should be the first in that case.
Yes. So all of these are underwriting considerations. So whether you have a fire suppression system or fire prevention system, we'll assess all of it. And it's not only the batteries, but also where the installation is situated. It could be a roof-mounted installation that is sitting above a spray painting factory. Or a tire manufacturer. Holistically, that represents an increased risk.
Yes.
Right? So we will adjust our rates and terms accordingly. But where the risk is just too much to underwrite, and we're not comfortable with that, we're very happy to step away. And that goes back to my point about really creating the skill within the industry. And yes, we have a long way to go before we can enforce regulations here. We do have regulations. I don't think it's adequately enforced yet. But we have to make sure that all installations that we underwrite comply with the necessary standards.
I think this is a very important point. I mean, we as ACES, we sat in a couple meetings recently because we're doing an installation for a large chemical facility,
right?
A factory that produces chemicals, where everything under the roof is flammable. And we've been asked by the underwriters to specifically put rapid shutdown systems,
right?
Even if the fire is not linked to, or the potential fire is not linked to the solar PV, you must have a whole bunch of sensors across the site that will tell you that building there's a rise in temperature. You need to switch the PV off even before anything happens to avoid any contamination of the fire
and spread.
Exactly.
Because that can lead to even potential third-party liability claims, which makes the situation worse.
So I think it is key, and I'd like to emphasize that the discussion with the underwriters must happen in the engineering phase of the project, because once it's costed and PPA'd, if I can say, it's too late. And then any change in design and costs will impact the ability of the IPP to sell the PPA at a tariff that makes it feasible. And therefore, those considerations must be taken before the project starts. So I think it's really important that we make a strong point out of this. Prisha, thank you so much for all of those insights. Before we part, because I think you've got a plane to take, yes. I'd like to ask you about your vision for the years to come, for the way the market is taking shape. Can you share a little bit more insight with us and what your vision is? Okay.
Really, Firedart's vision is to be the most credible engineering underwriter now, not only in South Africa, but the African continent.
Because I think you've ticked that box for South Africa.
That's it. It's about getting people who buy into that, who are very comfortable in their own skin, who have the technical knowledge, but also the passion for service. And so my vision is that as we continue this journey, as we expand, I really want Firedart to be the recognizable leader, not only in the solar insurance space, but also in the engineering insurance space. And we are on our way to achieve that. Rome wasn't built in a day. I keep hearing that. But yes, Julian, that is our vision. And I think partnering with people like yourselves adds to that. And that is really my vision for Firedart.
Okay. I'm really glad to hear that, because for us we also have an extra South African vision, and setting up the standard across Africa is going to be the biggest challenge, I think. And but it gives me a really positive vision and a positive take on the future, knowing that we can work, that ACE's group and Firedart can work together with obviously a myriad of other players in the market to create that standards and back each other up at the end of the day. Because if we don't manage to teach and enforce those standards, we both are going to run into lots of troubles.
Yes.
So how do we take that industry further? Set the standard is essentially our biggest challenge going forward.
Yes, I agree.
Prisha, thank you so much for coming today. I think it's not often that we speak to an insurer as a friend. It's normally when you get the phone call, or when you make the phone call, it's not necessarily a friendly phone call. But the purpose of this discussion is really for us to build this industry together. And your insights are extremely valuable because it allows us to foresee into the future and to anticipate and to do better designs and to communicate better with our ecosystem and understand better what is feasible and what's not, and according to what standards, and what are the repercussions if we don't follow that standard. So again, thanks so much for an insightful discussion. I think you've saved a lot of money to a lot of people today. So thank you for them. And again, you're welcome to come back anytime and give us more insights on how we can design better and build better.
Thanks, Julian. It's always a pleasure to be in Cape Town, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Likewise. Thank you so much for listening to Switchdown. It was lovely having you again today, and see you next time. Cheers.